Who here has had a puppy dog? Raise your hand if you've had a puppy dog. Okay, it's almost unanimous. We've had a puppy dog. And when you got your puppy dog, was it cute? Was it frolicky? Was it playful? Was it curious? Was it energetic? Yes, in all likelihood, some of those qualities were in that cute little puppy dog, or that, not so cute puppy dog. Now, we take that little puppy dog, we bring it home. What was your puppy dog's name?
Stubby.
Stubby. Stubby.
Rocco.
Rocco.
Lucy.
Lucy.
Sierra.
Sierra.
Sandy.
Sandy.
Maya.
Maya. Really?
Yeah.
Oh, it's a good name. How did you get Maya?
I wanted to name my daughter that subconsciously, but I don't have a dog. I wasted it on my dog, but I didn't waste it because I love my dog. But
yeah,
a lot more people that you think are named Maya, and they're like, "What's your dog's name?" I'm like, Maya. My name's Maya. And you're like, "Oh."
Well, I know a couple of Rockies out there as well. And then what's your shark's name?
I actually don't want a shark yet. I have a puppy named Buddha though.
Yep. Really?
Yeah.
He comes around. So you have your puppy. Now Buddha might be different, but you put your puppy dog down and you say what? What do we say? Especially if you're in a park or you're in the backyard and you just got them, you say, stay, sit, right? Okay, because that's useful. It's helpful. And did who had Rocco? Did Rocco?
Mm-hmm.
Did Rocco stay right away?
No.
No, not at first. Very nice. Did Buddha sit?
No, definitely not.
That's so interesting. So we say stay, but they don't. They just run around, right? Right. And then what do we do if we're gonna? Because what do we want to do with our puppy usually, just for the sake of a lot of advantages for them and for us? We want to eventually train them, right? And so if you want to train them, we all have different ways, and I'm not here to suggest the way to train. I'm not a dog trainer, but it can be useful to, what? They run around. You do what? What would you do at first, probably? Could you say, hey, come back, but they don't even know their name yet, right, necessarily. So what do you end up doing?
Chase them.
You go after them, pick them up, hopefully with a little bit of kindness. It's okay, right? In those moments where we're not so kind, they didn't necessarily do anything wrong, right? We're just getting what? Frustrated. Okay. And we come back and we put them down and we say, what? Stay. And then they do what? They run away. And then we pick them up and we're like, it's okay. And we put them down and we say, stay. And then we do all the things that we do with treats and with this and with this and with this to help them stay. Now, what's the metaphor with our mind? We would like to sort of point out some of the sort of things that are intended to be part of this lesson.
This could be so wrong. Well, our mind, I guess I viewed it, our mind is wandering, and we're trying to retrieve it to refocus
Yes.
our attention on our primary object of attention.
Good. So our mind is like
Puppy.
it's like a puppy dog, right? And we say stay. And even though we're in our 20s and whatever we are, you'd like to think that it's trained, this mind of ours. But what we're learning is it's wandering all over the place. Now the puppy dog's not wandering because it's bad. This is important. It's its nature. It's exploring. How's it going to find food? How's it going to meet up with another dog or whatever? It has to have that tendency. And so do we. We have a part of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, that Daniel Goleman and others talk about, that the dogs don't have quite as refined as ours by a long stretch, which gives us this capacity, among other things, to be aware of. Okay. So when we say because next week there might be one exercise. Now, next week is largely relaxation exercises. The week after that, was this last week, was attention exercises, where we cultivate more concentration, but really learn about the mind. That's why it's not like do it. It's like just pay attention to it. Next week, relaxation exercises, because they're a part of, they're building blocks too, and we'll talk about the relationship that you already nicely already brought up, this relationship between the two. And then we'll get into the mindfulness practices. We're not even there. But everything we've done in some ways is a mindfulness practice, depending on how you relate to it, which is a taller order and larger conversation. So when we say, let's sit, lower, close our eyes, adjust our posture, even when we say, let's walk and then stop, we're in many ways inviting ourselves to sit, to stay. And while physically, this is where I thought your comment about the kitchen was so wonderful, Talia, there's a part of us that has this puppy dog quality that's just moving around, which we may be aware of, and we may not. Some of the places it moves feels good, for better or for worse. Some of the places it moves doesn't feel so good, for better or for worse. As a first factor, can we at least be aware of where it is? And so when you're not in the midst of the courtroom and in a classroom and with a lot of other people and things are going on, or in an argument, where it's very challenging to notice where your mind is going and the thoughts you're having, the feelings that are coming and how you're dealing with them, even in the best of circumstances. We make decisions sometimes, it's like, yes, I'll do that for the next 10 years. It feels so good. And they're like, what have I agreed to do? So it's not even like it comes from negative feeling experiences. We get caught up. The puppy dog gets caught up. It's smelling something, it's seeing something, it's wanting something, it's excited by something. It gets pulled away. So these are practices that say, let's practice staying. Because like the puppy dog, what happened in time to Rocco? Rocco became?
Somewhat learned.
Somewhat learned. And if there was steady discipline and a reliable, regimented form of kind, feedback, even more so, right?
He was learned very well, yeah.
Well, yes.
Yeah.
Right. And this is what the invitation is for ourselves. Because here's the thing. Eventually, so let's take this one more step. You all got, right? This little mind of ours is like a puppy dog. It likes to roam. You also hopefully got that that's normative, that's okay, that's not a problem. Some of our puppy dogs are all over the place, very energetic. Some of our puppy dogs aren't so. Some of our puppy dogs in some environments are like this, and other environments aren't so. We're all different, and we all have our environments, and we all have our puppy dogs. And that's why this mindfulness and other things that we do in life to sort of grow and have clarity and whatever are individual. It's just you and yourself. You and yourself. It's not you versus you or you versus me. I have no idea. Many of you have steadier minds than I do. You see more clearly than I do. I'm not practicing to get ahead of you. I'm practicing to be a little bit more effective, a little bit kinder, a little bit more aware than I might otherwise have been. And I hopefully coming from a good place to begin with, even 28 years ago, as all of you are. So it's just our aspirations to grow and to be, in some ways, even more effective at what we're doing. But in time, you want to go out with your puppy dog to take a walk. And they're not yet fully trained. So what will you do? If you just walked out with them, it's sort of hard to say what's going to happen. So what will you do to accommodate that?
You put them on a leash.
You put them on a leash. Okay. And why do you put them on a leash? What's the obvious first reason? So they don't? Okay. Now let's be a little bit more refined. Part of the reason we give the puppy dog a leash is what? So that when the puppy dog begins to go, what happens? We pull. We notice. This is key. When the puppy dog begins to go, we notice because we have an anchor, which is this leash. Yes? And then, does the puppy dog know?
It gets pulled back, yeah.
When it gets pulled back. But at first, the puppy dog's not even sure what to make of it, right? Sort of knows what to make of it. In time, because of the pleasure that we seek and the pain that we seek to avoid, it gets learned, right? So now, as we begin to take our break, what is, in this metaphor of you walking your puppy dog with this leash, this tether, when you, this last week, were sitting at home in your chair, looking at your lamp, looking at your bookshelf, looking at your sculpture, apply it to this situation. Where's the puppy dog? Which part of this is the puppy dog? We've already spoken to that.
Your brain.
Your mind, your brain. However, we gotta be, eventually we'll get narrower on that, but yeah, your brain, your mind, your attention, right? We get that. Who's the person walking your puppy dog? You. Things get challenging when they collapse into one. It's easy to say me and dog. Challenging enough to train even in that context. But at least it's like, but here it's like, who's sitting down to practice? You. Ostensibly, you're sitting down to practice because you want to train the puppy dog, right? You get this? You are sitting there holding the leash. And who is running off, thinking about the people in the kitchen? You are running off. How are you going to manage that? Do you see the interesting tension? You are simultaneously the one paying attention, and you're the one wandering away. This week, when the instruction was, what did you notice about your attention? It's what did you notice about your attention? Because really, this, right, is you. You get it? It's very subtle. We miss this, I'll speak to myself, you can miss this for a lifetime. Here we are saying, oh, interesting. But don't take my word for it, and don't even take your own conceptual, oh, I get that. It's when you're sitting, or standing, or walking, or talking, but we explore it starting off sitting, because that sort of keeps the environment clean of distractions, or at least minimizes them. It's like a laboratory that you want to have as few variables confounding as you can. Say, okay, I'm paying attention to this breath. And by the way, attending to an object is what? What is attending to the object? Because there's the you that's there with the intention to become more skilled with concentration, relaxation, mindfulness, whatever. And there's the puppy dog mind that's running all over the place. What's this? Because really, this is sort of the way it's been for a long time. You have your intentions, and you have what you end up doing. So what's this? Yeah?
Would be your consciousness.
Okay, it is the awareness that you're bringing, absolutely. And I'll assume that that's what you mean by consciousness. What is it that we are bringing into the practice that enlivens that consciousnness?
It is the mindfulness. It's the being in the present.
Well, the being in the present is sort of what allows this to be more fully realized and seen in the moment as a tug or whatever it might be, and eventually maybe not a tug. But what is it as part of the instruction?
Attention.
Attention on?
Attention on wandering.
Okay, so we'll get to attention on wandering. So that's a very interesting observation. We will get to the mind that pays attention to the mind that wanders. And some of you in your observations noticed, I think maybe you did, that your mind began to wander and you sort of followed it for a while. Yes? Was that you? Was it?
Yeah.
Okay. That was a very keen observation. But at first we're saying what for the first practices that we're doing? And when you notice your puppy dog wander, we do what?
Connect to the object.
We bring it back to the object. So the object is what allows us to feel the tug. If we didn't have an object, if we weren't resting our attention on the breath or on an object, then we wouldn't necessarily notice when it started to meander. And that's when it sometimes feels effortful. Like when the dog runs off, it feels like a tug. It feels like a tug. But, and this is the closing piece to this metaphor, which I hope is helpful to you. If you're walking your dog as it's being trained, and your dog starts to wander off, would you, and you love your dog, and you want to train it, and you know that you've got 12 more weeks to train your puppy dog. It's not like it has to be trained tomorrow. In fact, it doesn't have to be trained in 12 weeks. Maybe in 3 weeks it's a little bit more trained, and in 3 weeks it's a little bit more trained, and in 17 years it's, whatever. And it's not even like there's a place to get to, and I mean that seriously. But there are some interesting benefits that you can notice along the way. Like, we can go further, we can go more places, we can go to different kinds of places. We can enjoy the environment because we're not so worried about running off. If you're walking somebody, if you're seeing a little kid or a person walking their dog and the dog is all over the place, is that a problem? And when the dog tugs, the person just a general, come back, come on. Is it a problem when the puppy dog does what puppy dogs do as they're being trained? No, it's not. In fact, that's the reason that you're walking them on the leash, so that you can gently, because what do you want to do eventually? Do you want to have your puppy dog on a leash for its whole life? No, you want to get to the point where you're just like, let's go, right? And this is sort of what we're endeavoring. So I hope that metaphor is useful. There's many little components to it. If one speaks to you in some way, terrific. The intention is to share things and have you each draw upon them in ways that mean something to you.